I am Anatoliana Chalisova, and this is Patriots Must Rise. Today, I want to talk about the left's um, constant rhetoric about racism and what its intention really is. We are a crowd-funded podcast. The QR code in the upper left-hand corner um, leads you to our PayPal account so you can donate. We're going to be using a little bit of history, a little bit of archaeology, a lot of science, and some common sense. Stay tuned. I have a background in anthropology. In fact, I've worked crime scenes. I've been on a couple digs, and if you follow this podcast, or if you have for the past going on 3 years that this podcast has been going, I try to back up everything that I say with science. Well, I had an experience coming home on the bus today that basically showed me that all this talk of a race war that the left is instigating is very true and very possible. What happened was, and I'm not going to hold back because honestly, this is what the guy was acting like. This nigger that was filled up with all kinds of black entitlement just completely ignores the bus driver and doesn't pay the fare, doesn't even try, walks to the back of a bus and sits down. As he was passing by, I noticed that he was armed, and there were 4 other people, all men, that had already paid the fare. We had been stuck in traffic for about 15 minutes. I'm almost home. Bus driver calls him out, yells at him, method of fare. Hey, you, come up to the bus and pay your fare. All he does is ignore. We all say, just call the police. This thug needs to be taught a lesson. And she took a picture of him, and which basically meant that he was criminally trespassed. So he will not be allowed to get on any of C-Trans buses. Which, okay, I would have actually pressed charges and so on, because this black entitlement is getting way out of hand, and there's a reason for it. If you bear with me, Tom MacDonald and Adam Calhoun say it a hell of a lot better than I can. And I'm going to play the whole song because everything in the song is relevant to today. And then I'm going to get into um, a lot of archaeological stuff that will possibly bore anybody that's watching me, but I thank anybody that actually sticks around because basically the left and a lot of the activists in the black community are trying to push a narrative that basically everything in society was created by the blacks, and that needs to stop. The African American, the people in Africa in general, have a very rich history. They don't need to steal other people's. I don't specialize in African American history. I specialize in cultures in general. But let's get into this. Of course, there's a commercial. I'm sorry. It's not letting me skip it. It's okay to be racist, as long as you hating on the Caucasians. Teaching white kids that their shapes the same as school shooters and rapists. Maybe I ain't tripping because the white children have been getting taught that they got white privilege by the white guys in the high heels who identify as the white women. I'm not proud to be white, but I'm fine with it because I'm not allowed to have pride in it. Because the colonizers and the white biggest make white history my business. I ain't never gonna give a damn if you like me. I'm gon' trip with the stereotype me. I'm a white boy and a white boy like me knows that all lives matter. Fight me. When I was younger, they taught me to never see color, to treat every man as if he was my brother. But now that we're grown up, we hate one another for all of the ways that we struggle and suffer. They coming for better. We running for cover. The government wants us divided and dumber, addicted and stuck in the gutter, so we never wake up and never recover. Call me culture vulture because I'm bad good. I don't pop jams and smoke bad woods, but they call me a winker and label me Hitler and hate like I'm wearing a Klan hood. It ain't left or right or black or white, it's good and evil. I leave folks ain't normal people. United we stand in the battle, we fall. America, we gotta get real. You were segregated, that was not fair. You were enslaved, they did not care. But you were never on a plantation, and my generation was not there. There's trauma in your DNA, causing what we see today. I pray to God you staying strong. Don't want to see no man. Stop. You white folks are embarrassed. Some of y'all are such. He just hit it right there. I wasn't planning on breaking down his song, but I think it's important that I do. The words, you were never on a plantation and I wasn't there. That rings true to everybody in this generation. Okay. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I believe that the biggest reason, other than the press gaslighting everything, that the African American is the only subculture within human history that has been enslaved, that has not gotten over it, is that every other culture in human history has had to basically abolish and create a genocide of their captors in order to earn their freedom back. The one thing that actually stands out is that the African American had a white man literally hand them their freedom. That has to be very embarrassing to them. And I don't know if I don't know if the generation that's alive today even realizes that that's part of the racism. But if you think about it, a person tends to start resenting somebody when they start handing people or handing you everything that you need, where you don't actually have a chance to work for it. And I believe that that's actually part of what the the reason for this constant ability for the left to gaslight um, their ingrained hatred for themselves and the culture that they live in is actually coming from. Okay, let's go on.
I swear they want us in a race war, dying every day for whose lives matter more. I won't be dying in the race war. Our government is paying.
Okay. I swear they want us in a race war, dying every day for whose lives matter more. Back in the George Floyd riots of 2020, conservatives would respond to the phrase Black Lives Matter with the comeback All Lives Matter, and that would completely inflame them. A lot of this is due to the propaganda that is stemming from mainstream media and the fact that the Democrats have always been the party of hate. I've talked about that over and over again on this podcast. I've cited Dinesh D'Souza, Mark Levin, Thomas Sowell. By the way, just in case you don't know, Thomas Sowell is a black man, and he spoke out about this stuff long before I was even alive. That should say something right there. Further, the only people that I know that actually perpetuate the narrative of racism in America are leftists. I work with African Americans very closely. They're very conservative, and they see exactly what I am saying right now to you on a first-hand basis. As a matter of fact, some of them have even pointed out the points that I'm talking about right now. All right, let's go on. Okay. Dinesh D'Souza and Thomas Sowell both point out in various books that they have written that the ghetto mentality of the projects that were started by Lyndon Bastard Johnson, the president that killed JFK. I probably shouldn't say that because people will label me as a conspiracy theorist, but it's basically an accepted fact, so I'm just going to go with it. He actually made the bold and hideous statement that if this bill, and I'm quoting, if this bill passes, we will have those niggers voting for us for the next 200 years. Okay, this bill being the New Society, which was basically a gentrification bill that upgraded the projects of the inner city. It made a lot of welfare reforms that basically made it so a father could not stay with his children and his wife, and still have the government subsidies to benefit them. In other words, he had to get a job. It also perpetuated, and this was completely accidental. I cannot blame LBJ on this. This was just how societies tend to work themselves out when you don't have opportunity in the area that you're in. It created a subset of the African American culture in the ghetto, where young men would impregnate as many women as they could. The women would actually accept this newly impregnated girl into the matriarchy of the tribe, basically, as a rite of passage. They never expected the father to stick around. So these boys that are being raised with only a mother, excuse me, these boys that are being raised with only a mother are pushing this threshold where they can't afford to go out and get a job and stay in the mother's household, because she would lose the HUD housing, the government subsidized housing. So, and they're also looking for some kind of male acceptance. So that breeds gangs. All of this was perpetuated by the Democrats. All of it. All right, here's where it comes down to the economic reality across the board. Okay, the left likes to say that the white man is oppressing, even still, the black man, and yet the bills that the Democrats have passed, affirmative action, for instance, has pushed the male white student out of school in favor of African American student. You have to stand out to such a point that you basically already got your degree in order to waste the money on a college and have them sign off on the little certificate because you've already done the work. You've already broken the mold in order to get anywhere. And then you also have to jump through the stupid liberal propaganda hoops that are perpetuated by these schools, because the left has hijacked higher learning, specifically in the humanities sector. Anthropology happens to be considered a humanity. It's a subset of archaeology, which is a subset of geology. It's actual science, not this pseudo bullshit where psychologists that serve no purpose actually get all the grants. All right.
Every color turns up bones one day when you carry them. Whites and blacks are all the same. They want us in our grave. Just let me try to explain. I swear they want us in a race war, dying every day for whose life matter more. No, I won't be dying in a race war. Our government is paid for, 'cause our lives matter more. They're us in a race war, dying in the streets. Should be us against them, but it's you against me. Ain't nobody gonna win. Everybody gonna see that the color.
Okay, that's as far as I'm going to go with the song, because they basically covered everything. They're calling out the government, saying that this is exactly what they want, because they don't want people to be focused on what they're doing. I believe that's actually part of why they chose to bring queer theory into public schools and so on, because they knew it would bring so much controversy to the table that they could do the corrupt stuff that they're doing in Ukraine and now Israel against Iran in these forever wars. We know that Ukraine is a money laundering operation for the Democrats. It always has been. So, and that's actually why Donald Trump was forced out. because he was calling out all the stuff that the deep state was doing. All right, let's get into this. This is where it gets kind of boring. So if you lose me, I'm sorry, but this is where it has to go. The discovery of a port of Constantinople, now modern day Istanbul, forever changed the history of the area, because the city was believed, Constantinople was only believed to be as old as the Roman Empire. The discovery of a port that actually got buried in the port that was in antiquity known as Theodosius. Dates it back almost 1,000 years beyond the Roman Empire. Okay, the reason that I bring this up is because the left likes to say that the Caucasians had never been enslaved. Okay. This couldn't be further from the truth, and this actually proves it. Because they had found Caucasian skeletons, and I'm not going to pussyfoot around with this. There are definite differences in the races, the subspecies of the human race, as far as the orbits, the zygomatic bone, the mandible in the skull, even the way the femur and the hip joint. Okay, so in the song where it says we're all the same, science says otherwise, but it's fundamentally just not even important. These differences are just appearance. All right, but the reason I bring this up is because the Caucasian skeletons that were shackled to the decks of a ship, that went down with the ship, are proving a slave trade around the third, maybe even around the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Okay, so this is around the time of the Exodus. Okay, I wanted to bring up that point. The link in the description, draw this out a little bit more. Okay, then we go to Britannia. The Roman name for Britain. around the time of the so-called Norman occupation, the Roman occupation, both of those have actually been disproven as it looks like the natives of the island were actually living side by side these colonizers. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a slave trade going on. There definitely was. But there were collaborators. So it wasn't a violent occupation. It was treason. Okay? Once more, archaeology actually changes the narrative of the story in the history books. But whether or not that history book is going to be rewritten is really up to the leftist that is teaching the class. Okay. We then go to Egypt. And the reason that I go to Egypt is because the left is always talking about slavery being a new thing that was only perpetuated by the white Americans. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. The Egyptian definition of slavery in the first, second, all the way up to the 18th dynasty was basically somebody that was a foreigner, that was working in the fields. They were getting paid, but they weren't making enough to actually make a difference in their lives. Middle class citizens. All right. The Bible goes into a character named Joseph, the son of Jacob in Genesis, who was sold into slavery into Egypt, which is how the Hebrew nation actually became a population of Egypt. The story goes that he worked his way into favor with the Pharaoh, where he became, he was given almost as much authority as Pharaoh as to how to run Egypt. He was an advisor to the Pharaoh. And yet the Bible makes it very clear that the Pharaoh says that you will have authority over everyone but me. He was still a slave. If he would have left Egypt, he would have had legions of armies going after him. And he knew it. But he was living so comfortably that people did not understand that this was slavery. Now I want to go into the Americas. The Aztec, the Inca, the Toltec, throughout South America. and into the Native American of North America. They were all trading in slavery of other tribes, of anybody that came on their shores that they didn't necessarily like. Here's the difference. The slaves of the Aztec, Toltec, Inca, the Native American, were still thought of as human beings. They were given rights. They were allowed to flourish as best they can, as long as they acknowledged that they still reported to their captors. All right, here's where the left is really going to hate me, not that they don't already. Modern America, the class warfare that we talk about doesn't exist. What we're actually seeing here is a form of slavery. Okay? When people push or are convinced to push for a higher minimum wage, what they're actually saying is, okay, fine. We submit further to you, our government, and we acknowledge that you're more important than us. Because who actually benefits from the minimum wage? A higher minimum wage puts you into a new tax bracket. Okay? In other words, they're taking out a higher percentage of their taxes. So you're seeing the same amount on your paycheck with more taken out on your taxes. The only people that are actually benefiting are the elite. And as a lot of Gen Z has actually pointed out, I'm working as much as I possibly can, and I can't get ahead. Yeah, that is the picture. That is slavery. So when the left says that the Caucasian has never seen slavery, dude, we're in it now. That's what we have for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please like, subscribe. The QR code, as I said in the beginning of this video, is to help us keep going. One thing that you might enjoy that's kind of new is a new newsletter that is available for paid subscribers. It backs up everything that I'm saying as far as the research goes, and it's my citations. I'm not a leftist. I actually do my research, and I'm not talking off the cuff. So if you're interested and want to expand your argument against these lefty hacks, subscribe, and I'll try to do my best to keep you informed. Until next time, live free, die well, and love your neighbor as Christ loved you.